Today, I've cooked up a damn good one for you. Now, over this past month or so, I've been playing more Overwatch than I ever have since Marvel Rivals release. Now, I still can't play all day, especially on my own, like I play. However, I'm still having a good time playing it, and for the times when like it gets boring or whatever, I can just go to Rivals because luckily we have them both now. Now, just like in Marvel Rivals, I am a tank main in Overwatch, and somewhere between all the flip-flopping between games, it smacked me right in the face like a somewhere between all the flip-flopping between games, it hit me that these games are very different tank experiences. And honestly, it gave me the really cool idea for this video. In today's video, we're going to be going over the differences in tanking in Marvel Rivals versus Overwatch. If you like it, be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe to the channel for more. And let's get into the video. Here's like a brief description of how this video is going to go. I'm going to start off by giving like a short summary on what I believe tanking is. Following that, we will go over both what it is to tank in Overwatch and what it is to tank in Marvel Rivals. Following that, I will go over how they're similar and how they're different. And then to end the video off, I will give my closing thoughts. And fair warning, things get pretty spicy around the how they're similar and different section. So be sure to check that out. Now, like I said earlier, I play tank in both Marvel Rivals and Overwatch. Between both games, just in this singular role, I have hundreds of hours. So while I might just be a regular guy, majority of my gaming experience is this shit. I love tanking more than anyone, really. And with that being said, everything that I'm about to say is completely my opinion. You know, the games are vastly different. I'm gonna get into exactly how that is, but you might have a different experience than I do, vice versa. But just from my own experience, this is going to be my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. So what is tanking? The art of tanking really is a spectrum of a lot of things. I think the most common answer you'll get is it's, you're the bullet sponge, you take and deny space, and you're there to force cooldowns. And I think this is a very simple way of approaching the role, while it might be true. But there are deeper aspects to tanking than just that. When you tank, you have more responsibility than anybody else in the game. Now, let me say it again for the DPS players who are looking stupid right now and confused. When you play tank, you have the most responsibility in the game. Yes, you're a bullet sponge, but you have to be careful not to feed. Yes, you have to force enemy cooldowns, but you have to be careful not to die, and no, dying isn't the only way that you can feed. And yes, you have to take and deny space, but at the same time, you have to be ready to potentially peel for your support or your backline. There's a lot going on in just even that alone. Like I said, that's just the start of it. You're the driving force for your team, and at the same time, you have to be very careful not to get tunnel vision, because it's super easy to get hyper focused on one thing and lose sight of everything going on around you. So with this in mind, what is the tanking experience in Overwatch? What's it like to tank in Overwatch? It's fucking ass. No, but in all seriousness, I think they've lost the plot for the role. Within the game of Overwatch itself, you have three very different styles of tanker, or rather, three very different situations in which you'll tank. Or game modes? Three different game modes? You have three different game modes that you'll tank, right? You have 5v5, 6v6, and Stadium. For the sake of this video, we're going to exclude Stadium just because it's a very different game mode and just a very different way of playing the game all entirely. We can't really forget about 6v6, even though they really want us to, even though it's a superior way to play the game, but that's a conversation for another day. But what does it mean to tank in Overwatch? Honestly, it's very straightforward. Your job is very obvious, very simple. It's very dependent on your tank style. If you're playing Reinhardt, don't play Reinhardt. You're frontlining. If you're playing Ball, you're a backline harasser. If you're playing Sigma, you're just kind of staying around until something happens. It's really just dependent on the role, brawl, dive, or poke. Your job as an Overwatch tank is genuinely just based on the role in which your tank is, if that makes any sense. Because honestly, a lot of the tanks in this game are good at one thing, good at one specific thing. Unfortunately, compared to Marvel Rivals, Overwatch tanks don't have the sustain to really deal with their counters. Counters, mind you, that are in every single role heavy. A single support character, we all know who I'm talking about, she can shut down half of the tank roster by herself. It's fucking ridiculous. Mistakes are extremely punishing in Overwatch because it's almost impossible to self-correct unless you play a select two tanks, which means that you're going to have to depend on your team a lot when you make a mistake. You have to be a glutton for punishment to be a tank player in Overwatch. And this leads me to my next point fairly well. The meta is everything. Meta is everything. If you go off meta, your team will flame you. Even if you're better at another character, if you go off meta and you start to lose or whatever, it's completely on you. It's completely on you because meta in this game is so strong that it's genuinely do or lose. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Now, with that being said, though, you will find some of the most fun and best designed tanks you will ever play in gaming within Overwatch that genuinely make it worth the punishment. Last thing I'll say is that the tank design direction they seem to be going is more DPS focused. This is really scary to me because it means like characters like Reinhardt or maybe even Winston are going to have to play catch up, or they're going to have to get some sort of major buff or some broken stat to stay relevant. And to me, that's really bad because, no one's going to like tank players and tanks in general get enough crap as is. We're already called big beefy DPS and things like that. So I just wish that things were more grounded in tanking and less, all right, let's make a character in the tank role that's good at everything. They have uber sustain, uber damage, somewhat movement. Like I miss the days where a tank was good at one thing and every character was good at their own little thing. But nowadays it's like everyone can kind of do everything, which means no one's really special. I'm also scared that for the future characters that they design, because if you do try to make another melee character similar to Reinhardt, well, I mean, do you give him a shield? Do you not give him a shield? If you don't give him a shield, what type of sustain are they going to get? Because they're going to get bullied by the CC in the game, and the character is going to be not played, and then no one's going to buy skins, and then like it's going to be bad. So I'm really worried for characters in the future that are going to be made like Reinhardt or maybe even Roadhog, because Roadhog, he's been buffed so freaking much to the point where he's broken. He has to be broken, but at the same time, he can be a pain to play if you're going against like Ana. So I don't know. I'm kind of just worried about the general design in which the tank category seems to be going. What about tanking in Marvel Rivals? And listen to me when I say this, it's genuinely an easier experience. You stay alive longer due to just hit design and health pools, and there's also not as many hard counters that completely shut down your character compared to a game like Overwatch. One thing that I like about it a lot is that you feel like with your own power, you can win a fight or even turn a fight when you're at a disadvantage. You don't just blow up. And while they're not all viable in every situation, your individual skill level impacts the game and opens up your options far greater than on Overwatch. If you can play off meta per se and make it work just because I think that there's something within the character designs that really allows you to express yourself on a skill level really well in this game. Another thing that really opens that door is that the tanks in Marvel Rivals are good at a couple things, not just one. Like if you're a dive, yeah, you're also kind of good at brawling, or if you're a poke, you're really good at like anti-dive. They kind of have a pseudo style to them. I do think tanking in Overwatch is a more competitive experience. However, on the flip side of that, tanking in Marvel Rivals has more depth to it than Overwatch. So that's kind of a really weird thing to really think about. But I think that in Rivals, with the tanks being able to do a couple different things, there is some complexity in that, and you'll find yourself frontlining and brawling or peeling and things like that far more often than you'll catch yourself doing in Overwatch, especially in like a 5v5 type environment where you're pretty locked into a singular job. So it pays to be flexible in Rivals, and at the same time, if you want a more competitive experience, Overwatch is definitely the game for you. All right, let's go ahead and shift gears. This is when shit's about to get good. So after thinking about all these different things that makes these games tanking experiences unique, it had me wondering, like, how are they similar? There has to be something that brings us to want to tank in both Marvel Rivals and Overwatch. Like for me, for instance, why am I so willing to go from Rivals tanking to Overwatch tanking? So in this next segment, we're going to go over the similarities between the two. We're going to go over how they're similar. Well, for starters, the core experience is still the same. Your fun is ultimately dictated by team composition, whether that's your own team or the enemy team, as well as the likelihood of you solo tanking. You're in the same boat, just a different brand. I also want to add solo queuing to this because maybe it's just me, but it seems like DPS players always duo queue or support players always duo queue, and then the occasional DPS support duo queue. Go get yourself a tank main friend out there. We're lonely. Okay, we're lonely. Another similarity is that it's still the least popular role in both games. I think that's really funny that, you know, there is a subcategory of players who don't mind playing the least popular role, but in that is like a sense of pride and loyalty. So, you know, just another similarity. I don't know how many times just in the Overwatch space alone I've heard the discussion of just get rid of tank, like it's not, it's unnecessary. And this was more so around the when we were having the debate about 6v6 versus 5v5. A lot of people were talking about they went 5v5 because it was hard to balance two tanks, and people were just, I'll just drop tanks in general, whatever. But yeah, tank is the only category I've ever heard get recommended that just get dropped. So that's kind of, you know, crazy to me, but whatever. Now, this next point is big for me personally because it's one of the main reasons that I love the role, but I think we can all agree that both games have good tank design. Like, there are at least three characters from each game that I think you just feel like a big bad force of nature. Like, I'm thinking like Reinhardt and Emma, Thing, Junker Queen, Sigma, and Venom. Like, you just feel like a tank. Like, you feel like a really like a threatening force that demands attention. And I think it's very important when you are playing tank. And then this kind of leads me into my next point that the lows are low and the highs are pretty high. I think it's common in both games to solo tank, and to me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of doing it. Like, yeah, you know, I think in a 5v5 environment, part of the fun of being in 5v5 is being the only tank, but you know, I tend to have fun when I have another tank to kind of bounce off of, or to cover the slack that I have. Or, you know, if I'm wanting to dive, well, I don't have to worry about my back line because there's another tank back there to help out. So it's just kind of it's a nice relaxer to know that there's a second tank with you. But that's not my point. You know, when you are doing everything right, when everything's going for you, you're playing tank, you feel unstoppable. It feels great in both games. And likewise, when you're just being hard countered or when you're just underperforming, you know, or the team's underperforming, right, and it's really low, sometimes you feel like a hindrance to the team, sometimes you feel like a bystander, and I think that that general feeling is, again, the same for both games. I think that it's really unique because in Overwatch, when you make a big play or you do something really big, you have a sense of pride because it's hard to do. It's not really that common, especially nowadays. So you feel really good that you were able to pull off anything really. And then on the flip side, in Rivals, you know, it's pretty simple and easy, so you get these big plays more often, so you just feel like a god tier player. Last thing I'll say is in both games, the job of tanking, the responsibility is relatively the same. There might be some slight differences between how you go about brawling or diving, but the general idea of, okay, I need a brawl, I need a dive, yeah, it's the same. The targets are the same, the responsibility is the same. It's still the same. Now, if we talk about the similarities, we have to talk about the differences, right? Are you ready for this? Well, for starters, there's different levels of tank sustain, or rather just sustain in general. Now, this is very complex because one game is more focused and locked in on being competitively balanced while also giving every role the ability to do every other role's job. And the other game just kind of wants you to have a good time for a long time. I plan on making a separate video about the specific differences between tank design. But you know, we're gonna skip over that. We're not gonna get too deep into that. But like for instance, sustain in Overwatch is Orisa going golden, getting damage mitigation, and getting like 150 over health or something like that, right? And then, you know, to an Overwatch player, it's been fucking ridiculous. That's like so much sustain, it's crazy. Or something as simple as like Roadhogs take a breather being on a resource. Or how about Malga self-healing when he shoots somebody that's on fire or when he does critical damage, you know, things like that. That's sustain in Overwatch. Do you want to know what the sustain is in Marvel Rivals? Well, for instance, the Thing gets like 200 extra health just for running. Oh, and he can't be stopped during it. Oh, and when he's at the end of it, he hits the ground, does a big circle, and no one can use movement abilities in that. All in one button, mind you, one button. Or how about Venom, right? 650 health. Yeah, he can double that. More than double that with one button. It's very complicated. These games, character design, it's so wacky and just different on how these developers see how they want their characters to be. So like I said, it's very complex, very different experiences in just the sustain category alone. And you know what? I'll be damned if this isn't a perfect segue into my next area of discussion, right? They have different levels of independence and survivability. Very important to address this, but to me personally, sustain is how well you can keep yourself up in a fight, while survivability is essentially how well you can get out of a fight alive. Now, to me, in Overwatch, unless you're playing like Doom or Ball, maybe Diva, you're not getting out of that fight. It's either win that fight or spray paint the fucking spawn room because that's where your ass is headed. Now, as bad and as unfun as this might sound, I don't think it is that. I think that, like I said, Overwatch tanking is more complicated. It's harder. It's harder because you lack that independent playmaking capability. It really is a team dependent game, and your performance as a tank really is dictated by how you guys perform as a team most of the time. 9 times out of 10, you can't take a fight, do shit on your own, make a play, and live to tell the tale, especially in a 5v5 environment. However, in Marvel Rivals, you can because we have more get out of jail free cards, we have more fail safes. In Marvel Rivals, we get to think less, act now, think about how we fucked up later, right? That's why so many of the tanks in that game can run or freaking jump or something. But also, as it stands now, we don't have an Ana, we don't have a Sombra, we don't have a Zenyatta. The worst thing you'll experience is Mantis sleeping you, maybe Luna freezing you, Emma grabbing you by the neck, or maybe even these two fucking pieces of shit. But even then, we have a fuck this shit I'm out button. I mean, dude, the new tanking Rivals flies permanently. I mean, it's crazy. There are literally characters in Overwatch that prevent other characters from existing. It's insane. It's fucking ass. It's like you guys have given the support role all the capabilities of a DPS player. So now the only option as a tank player is to fight the other fucking tank until one of us gets ult or till one of our teammates does something. Like what? Generally, it's rank dependent. Like, what do you expect a player playing Winston or Diva to dive? Like, fucking Sim Reaper, Freya, Soldron? Are you fucking serious? No, I'm supposed to dive the chick with a fishbowl on her head, but guess what? She has a double jump, a speed ring, and can fly at fucking Mach 10. There was a time period when she can crit damage and when she had assault rifle. Aaron, 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 I want to play Reinhardt, Aaron, but when I lose my shield, I lose my life. Aaron, I want to play Junker Queen, but Grandma hits me in the face with a bottle of lean and all my shit goes out the window. How about instead of babying the support players, you guys devise some sort of system to encourage peeling because we can't dive this stupid bitch. Next up, the gameplay loops, completely different. I know I said earlier, same boat, different brand, but diving as Winston and diving as Captain America, two totally different things. Now, you think that Brawl, Dive, and Poke would be the same between both games. Well, it's not at all, at least for tanks, because in Overwatch, it takes a higher level of coordination and execution than it does in Marvel Rivals. They make you really earn that shit in Overwatch. The gameplay loop in Marvel Rivals, it's really simple because there's so many more abilities. It's easier to come across these situations versus in Overwatch where mistakes are really punishing. Countering is very punishing. To wrap this section up, and honestly, just the truth of the matter is that tanking in Overwatch is more mentally demanding, and tanking in Rivals is just simply easier. To close this video out, I want to say this. Both of these games offer a very special, unique, sometimes fun, sometimes not so fun experience. They will not feel the same, which is good because if one gets tiring or whatever, you can almost guarantee that the other one will somewhat feel refreshing. At the end of the day, we're tank mains. We go where we're needed to do the job that nobody else wants to do. Stay humble, protect your team, and for the love of God, please stop overextending. When it's all said and done, I think Overwatch is more complicated with less moving parts, where Rivals has more moving parts, but it's less complicated. Thank you guys for watching the video. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more, comment your thoughts down below, and I will see you in the next video.